you're being while you're building matters more than what you're building. Here's the thing. Most coaches are failing because they keep hacking at the solution. My name's Amanda Kaufman, and we're talking about character over hacks. I'm super excited to have you here. And today we are talking about the inner game of being a really amazing coach. All right, so we're going to talk about the inner game of being a coach in the long term, because I got to tell you something. I know what it's like to go pay for the coaching certification program, for doing all the homework, spending all your evenings, all your weekends on this business, this idea of the impact that you want to have in the world. And I know how frustrating it can feel when you realize like no one seems to care, or you almost get into this, it feels very opposite land when you realize it, but you're putting like all this effort in and you almost feel like everybody around you kind of doubts it. They doubt whether you're going to be a really good coach. They doubt whether coaching even works. They doubt whether you have possibly lost your marbles pursuing this coaching thing because you're spending all your waking hours on it. And hey, if that has ever been you, or you have a friend who's ever had that experience, I just want to invite you into today's live with a big old heart and a big old smile. And if this is our first time connecting, my name is Amanda Kaufman, and I help coaches with building a business that they really, really love. And I specifically do that by teaching them the strategies, the messaging, the processes, the technology, all of the things that you need to be very successful as a coach, primarily promoting your business online, which wasn't always the case. I used to always say like, do it offline. And I like offline networking. I love it. I had like an amazing event last Thursday where I had the opportunity to speak. But the thing is, that group gets together once a month, right? And if you have 12 opportunities to show up, and let's be real, most people when they join like a networking community or something like that, you're going to miss a meeting now and again. There's going to be a conflict occasionally. So you got like 12 attempts to make an impression, 12 attempts to build and deepen relationship. And like, that's incredible. But this live stream that I'm doing, 52 attempts a year, right? 52 attempts to connect, to serve, to have impact. And that's like incredible. So that's my live streams, right? That's my live streams. Then inside of the Clients Over Chaos free community, we've got daily sparks that we do Monday through Friday. So that's another 5 a week. What is that? 5 times 52. Can't even. Let's do the math. 52 times 5. 260 more opportunities to connect through my daily spark, through my voice. Then, of course, we've got the live show, the podcast, the Amanda Kaufman Show. So that's released 3 times a week, times 52. Another 156 opportunities to connect through that. Then, of course, we've got my stories. I'm typically doing about 3 stories a day at this point in my strategy. So whatever 3 times 365 is, that's almost 1,000, right? 3 times 365. I'm doing a lot of math. It's a lot of math on a Monday, and I hope you'll forgive me for that. Shout a Y in the chat if you've ever done the math, like you've done this math before. You're like, I am familiar with this math. But then I realized that people took that as like, don't do math. And I'm like, no, just like, I'm bad at arithmetic in public, but I very much do the math. And let me ask you, if you had 1,000 opportunities to connect with somebody, do you think you would be a little bit more successful than someone who's doing it 12 times, right? Like, is 1,000 greater than 12? Like, of course it is. So today we're going to be talking about like what actually builds a thriving coaching business. And here's the big spoiler. Not going to be a new strategy. I'm not announcing today that there's a new replacement for TikTok. I'm not announcing today that there's this new format of a video that you can do that is going to like change your life. Like that's, yeah. Oh my gosh. So Annie did the math, and in just that little example, I had 1,563 opportunities. Hey, Annie, do me a favor. If I added to that I'm posting an average right now of five times a day. Let's see. let's do an average of 4 posts, but times 5 platforms. Can you do that? And then that's every day. So times 365. Those are all opportunities to connect, right? It's a lot. Okay. So here's the thing. When I first started my business, I did no posts. I did very little. In fact, I was avoidant of starting an email list. I was avoidant of doing lives, right? Being on camera or doing any kind of video. I was even avoidant of selfies and pictures. I had like a really negative self-perception of my body and of how people would receive me. And I just really want you to know that that was like where I started. And when I started, I still had a really good paying corporate job, and I didn't want to look like I didn't care about the work, even though I was building the next thing, because I knew how important it was to my family to earn that paycheck, right? So I felt like I had golden handcuffs. And if you've ever had that experience, especially as somebody who like grew up very modestly, like I didn't think that I could earn what I did in my corporate career. So this scarcity for me was like hanging on with this white knuckle grip to this job that was in this company that was doing this work. And it's so funny because this past weekend I was cleaning out my office. Very, very exciting work. But I was cleaning out my office and I came across like old private notes, and I was like, girl was unhappy. You know, I was really not connected to the work, and I felt angry, I felt resentful, I felt anxious. Like there was just a lot that was happening at that time. And I'm sharing that with you because I started somewhere. You know, with all that anxiety, I started with the 8 people. Hey, Lisa, glad you're here. I started with the 8 people that I felt vulnerable with, safe with, to tell them like, hey, I want to be a coach. And like, when I tell you how painfully shy I was, I had hundreds of contacts in my phone. I had hundreds of contacts on my LinkedIn. I even had hundreds of contacts on Facebook. But I had pre-written the story in my mind, and tell me if this really resonates with you. I had pre-written the story in my mind that everyone was judging me. But what was the truth? I love talking to a bunch of coaches because you hear this story and you're like, oh, ruh-roh, I hear a mindset coming on, right? Like the real truth is well, it was my mindset. It was my perceptions became my projections. Like I thought that because I perceived that I would be the loser, or I perceived that I would be unwelcome, or I wasn't up to this, you know, perfectionistic standard, that other people would share that view. So my projection was actually my perception. And I'm sharing this with you because I think many people who follow me, who connect with me, who DM with me, you know, we keep it on the DL, we keep it nice and private. The behind the scenes conversation is so often connected to our own perception of our own value, our own perception of our own worthiness. And it's not even just worthiness at a person level. Maybe you feel like, oh no, as a person, I am very valuable. I know that. I have faith in that. It's just that I don't have faith in my coaching. I don't have my faith in people being, you know, helped by my help. So if you have a friend who has ever just really experienced this level of self-doubt about, you know, how well your help was going to be received, that you felt like, or your friend felt like that help wouldn't be appreciated. And I'll be honest, like even in the last 6 months, I can point to times in the last 6 months where I'm scrolling social media and I'm reading all this critical shit. Pardon my French, but it's just like all this critical stuff of like real coaches are like this, or real mentors are like that, or, you know, this person's a shyster and this person's a jerk and this person is this and this person is that. And it's all this like judgy stuff that I feel like grown-ups probably shouldn't be posting. It honestly feels like the dialogue of a high school hallway of just this shoulds and this judgment and this, you know, status jockeying and all this kind of thing. And it drove me crazy, even in the last 6 months, to the point where I was thinking, I was like, am I nuts for what I'm doing, right? Am I insane for what I'm doing? Like, am I doing the same things over and over again, expecting a new result? And actually, I'm not making the traction that I'd like to because like I'm the crazy one. I really want to call out like who you're being while you're building matters more than I would say even what you're building. Let's say that again, right? It was a bit of a tongue twister. Who you're being while you're building matters more than what you're building. Who you're being. So what do I mean by that? Well, here's the thing. Most coaches are failing because they keep hacking at the solution. They just like hack, 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 hack. Here's my hack for the Instagram algorithm. Here's my hack for, getting sales really quickly. Here's my hack for blah, 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 blah. And when it's like we live in this world where it's all easy answers, it's all easy hacks, and it's all about getting lots for very little. And it's kind of lazy when you say it out loud, isn't it? Like, let me know in the chat if you're kind of over the hacks, right? And here's the thing, hacks can help. This is why they're so confusing. Hacks can help, right? Because I would rather see you get into action with a hack than have you like continue to sit there and think about action, right? I'd rather have you do that. So here's the thing, you can copy a funnel, you can copy a script, you can copy a schedule, but if your mindset isn't really lined up, it's doomed. Right? That hack won't become a handle. That hack will become just another nail in the coffin of your dreams, because when you fail with the hack, because a hack is a hack, right? Like there's a reason we call it a hack. This is not a precision, excellence driven activity. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is though, that action is better than no action. Precise action is better than no action, of course, but precise action is better than action. Precise action is not always better than no action. So I'm going to say that again. Precise action is not always better than no action. So I can really tell like a lot of people are living in denial, which is not just a river in Egypt, about their perfectionistic tendencies. They tend to relabel it. They tend to procrastinate, or procrastinate. That's a big one. They tend to work on a thing that's not the thing. They tend to fill their time with things that are not the thing because they're afraid of the thing. And they're afraid that it's going to be a hack job. And here's the thing. When you very first start, it most certainly will be a hack job. It is a rare thing to start a thing from completely scratch and just nail it perfectly the very first time that you do it. Coaches tend to burn out. And they tend to burn out because they're not trying to plant deep roots. Okay, so I want you to think about a tree. All right. So when you think about a tree and you think about a business tree, you might even be thinking about a money tree. What's the most prominent thing about a tree? It's probably going to be the trunk and it's probably going to be the leaves, right? So when you become a coach, you are like standing your ground and you're saying, I am a coach. That's like the core thing. And then we worry about all these leaves, right? How do the leaves look? How beautiful is my tree? But what most people don't really talk about are the roots. The strongest trees have a level of flexibility to them, don't they? They bend a little in the breeze. But why are they able to do that? Because their roots go so far into the ground and out so wide that it holds the rest of the tree stable. And it allows the tree to continue to grow and to thrive. But the thing is, we don't see the roots, right? The roots are underground. So we don't see those roots. So those coaches that you admire, the ones that are performing at these super elite levels, or even just surviving for a long time. Like, do you know how extraordinary it is? I've been in business for 8 years. I've read a statistic recently that over 80% of coaches fail within 2. And I'm like, what? That's an industry metric, not a peer-reviewed study. But based on my experience, I believe it, right? Based on my experience and what I've noticed, I really believe it. So like, How do you stay in the long game? I think you got to change the game. You got to change the game from winning with the hack to staying in the game over the long term. Here's the thing, deploy a strategy, but it's not aligned to your deep roots, your identity. Then you're going to be plagued by short-lived results. And that's the thing that I see stop most coaches is they get initial sparks, signals of success, and then they back off. They back off from it. And they back off for a lot of reasons. They say, oh, it was luck. What kind of root is telling you that it's not your doing? When you do the action and you can't claim the victory, you can't integrate the win, what root is there? You see? And like if you had a root that was more rooted in being able to claim your victories, being able to claim your expertise, being able to claim your competence, what would happen then? You see, the fun thing about roots, with this whole metaphor is there's the roots that are really healthy, that are pulling in the nutrients, that are pulling in exactly what you need to survive and to thrive. But in there's probably a few rotten roots. There's probably some roots that are getting blocked by big old boulders. Not every root is going to necessarily be helpful to that trait. And I'm sharing that with you because this is the work of coaching. Shout out the work. If you're like, oh my gosh, this is why coaches do so much better when they believe in the product of coaching. They get the coaching. They do the work, right? So let's talk about the inner game. Here's 3 places where the inner game is going to build you that stability. So when we think about those roots, we're putting the roots down into the ground, right? You got some tangled up roots down there already. You already got some roots. But are they in the nutritious soil? Are you getting the water? Are you getting the nutrients that you need? So the first root that I really want to talk about here. This is good. Awesome. So by the way, if you want this whole replay to search and play it back and watch it on 2x speed, just DM me DWM, which stands for Do What Matters, and I'll make sure that you get access to the community where we host this replay. It's completely free. It's completely awesome. I really encourage you to be there. Okay. So the first root that I think makes the biggest difference and certainly has made the biggest difference in my own life. So can you stay in the game when it's quiet? That's my first question for you. Can you stay in the game when it's quiet? So I'm speaking specifically to resilience here. Resilience. So, I think because of the marketing in our space, it can sort of feel like everybody's winning all the time. Everybody's winning all the time. Somebody's making, $100,000. I've done that in a weekend, but I tell you about it to help you with credibility of trusting me. I never lead with it, right? I never lead with it because although I've had that incredible experience, I never lead with it because it is so not typical. So not typical. It's not even typical in my business. That was a thing that I did one time that was pretty cool. And I know why it happened and I know why I haven't replicated it, which is awesome. That's really, really cool to know the what's and the whys. And I'm building up to the next time that I'm going to do that. So resilience. Can you stay in the game when it's quiet? So I cannot tell you how many entrepreneurs quit after succeeding, right? And you know what I mean by the success? It's like they hit the 10K month, they hit the $100,000 month or the $100,000 day. They get the dream client, they launch the dream thing, they do the dream event, they do the dream retreat, and then never to be heard from again, right? Why? Well, there's a couple of things. When it comes to success, there's punctuations of success, those moments that kill. I did a speech on Thursday that was amazing. It was so good. I had the best time, awesome energy, incredible feedback. It was just a very punctuating moment. It was this high point. And then it was back to work on Friday for me, back to life. And on Saturday, I had a really cool news just sharing with you because you're in my community. I am now officially an American. So if you were confused in the past, because I've lived in Texas for 15 years, so I very much speak as an American via Canada. So if you're wondering. So anyway, resilience. Can you stay in it when it's quiet? Can you stay in it when it's uncertain? Can you stay in it when it's still in the early phases and you're just pouring in and pouring in and pouring in and you're not sure how it's going to go. And actually, like I would even say with my application for citizenship, I was so uncertain through that whole process. Not a political statement. I'm just saying nothing was really like guaranteed. I could only do my best. I could only show up with my best care and my best self. And that's character. So the resilience to pursue an important process like that, and the resilience to deal with the uncertainty all the way through to the moment that I finally did it, that's a root. That's a rooted thing, right? I will never give up poutine. One of our community members just asked, like, will you give up poutine now? Never give up poutine. You don't have to give up poutine. That's such a great question. I love that. That delighted me. But see, you see what I'm saying? So like resilience, it shows up in posting on social media. It shows up in when your clients do things that are kind of crazy. You know, for the first time you encounter kind of a hot moment in a coaching, and it does make you kind of question everything. And resilience is allowing yourself to trust yourself through that process, even when you have a lot of uncertainty. So, you know, resilience, I would say, is like number one. Number two, are you open to feedback, growth, and new ways of being? Shout out, I am in the chat if you are so here for it. You're so here for it. Being open to that growth, being open to the new ways of being. And this, my friend, is the virtue of curiosity. It is so hard to remain curious when you're really attached to the outcome. When it's like, no, you know, I got to make this amount of money, or, you know, in this time frame, in this exact specific kind of a way. Look, man, like seriously, real talk. If we just look at your bank account with some curiosity right now, I'm curious, are you even clear on what your last $10,000 of purchases were? Not your last $10,000 purchase. I mean, do you know with extreme specificity what percentage of your money went to what out of the last $10,000 that you spent? It's a funny question, right? But I'm asking it in a funny way because I think if you just to be curious, like, what do I spend my money on? What percentage goes to my rent? What percentage goes to my food? What percentage goes to my Starbucks habit? Or my pedicures and manicures, or like, what do I spend on what? What do I spend on what? You know, and like just that curiosity can lead you to new decisions. You know, this morning, every Monday morning, I capture all of the statistics from my various social media. And actually my team puts together all of our data for our KPI report. So this is a key performance indicator report for my business. And I get curious. I'm like, you know, when I see peaks and spikes in data, I go, oh, that's curious. When I see like valleys, things like, so I had probably one of my most viral posts ever this Saturday. And unfortunately, it's not really a replicable strategy for most of you because I posted that I became an American, right? That is definitely like one of those once in a lifetime announcement kind of things that you can work with. So I got like a huge amount of reach and I got so many positive comments. Honestly, it heartened me. Like it was really awesome how supportive so many people were of that. I got a little bit of snark from a couple of people, but it was like not bad. But I also lost followers over it. And I thought, ooh, that's really interesting, you know? And instead of getting my feelings hurt, you know, I go, okay, that's curious. That's curious that people would quietly just like leave when they found out about that news. And I think that that's like, it's just interesting. It's not a political opinion or anything like that. It's just like interesting. Okay, so sometimes when you do things that are really, really big, you're going to get a lot of support, but then there's going to be a few people that they're going to opposite support, right? They're going to be like, this is no, right? No, don't want this. And it's like, okay, you know, that's cool. It's interesting, right? Growth, new ways of being, curiosity has been the most, I would say, important thing after resilience. Because you don't know how things are going to turn out until they have turned out. I always say success is in the rearview mirror. Like, you can't see if you're successful until you've been successful. You can project and predict what you think will make you successful, but you don't know for sure until you're in the rearview mirror. Does that make sense? Just drop a Y in the chat if that makes a whole lot of sense. And the problem is that when people reflect, first of all, most people don't reflect. Most people rarely look at that rearview mirror. They're so preoccupied with what's happening around the car, right? They're not looking behind them at all. And because they're not looking behind them at all, they're doomed to repeat the patterns that they've repeated for their entire lives because they don't have the habit of the reflection. And this stops coaches from being really successful because they're always looking at, how am I going to make money? How am I going to make clients? How am I going to say this message? How am I going to make the time for this? Gonna. And it's like, well, how have you? How have you made the time in the past? When it has worked, when did it work? You see the power of this? Curiosity is a really powerful thing. Like, looking in your rearview mirror, when was a time that you were super disciplined with your calendar? What was going on then, right? What did you do then that worked so well that you could maybe take forward, and now you're going to do it? You really are, because you're reinforced by your own wisdom, right? Looking at your own wisdom is so incredibly, incredibly valuable as long as you're actioning it, which takes me to my third big character trait, the inner game, is courage. Courage. So courage is the ability to act despite the fear, despite the risk, despite the nerves, despite the discomfort. Courage is the decision to act. And it's not just the decision to act, but it's the follow-through action that accompanies that decision. So, are you going to show up before it feels ready? Are you going to show up before it feels perfect? Like, this is the biggest area of growth I've certainly had. I thought there were only 8 people in my network that would be supportive of me. And it was when I finally got curious about that, and I finally activated my courage to say, everybody, my name's Amanda Kaufman, and I love personal growth and development, and it's changed my life, and it makes a big difference, and I love to teach. So if you'd love to learn how to be more productive, how to be more at peace in your life, how to be more influential, how to be even more of who you already are, if you want to know how to amplify the pieces of yourself that are absolutely amazing, and how to grow through the areas that you still need the development, and to do it with pace, but also grace. If you're that person, listen to me. Listen to me, because I know what it's like to feel afraid of everybody, to be afraid of social media, of trolls, of bad actors, to be afraid living in a society that can be litigious, to be afraid of making mistakes and of receiving judgment. I know what that feels like, but more importantly, I've figured out how to move through the world despite the fears. You see, like, that's what courage is all about. If you're courageous, just shout out another I am, right? You are. Like, if you're courageous enough to, like, slam a credit card down and say, I'm going to join this program, and it's the weird thing that nobody else does, then you have courage and you can activate that, right? I love it. If you're the kind of person who will get the book from the bookstore that's not an entertainment, but rather an education, you are awesome and you're courageous. You're courageous because a lot of people count themselves out before they even start. Being real, if you're the kind of person who walks into a freaking bookstore these days, right? That is, believe it or not, an act of courage, because what most people would do is they'd rather have the world served up to them on a silver platter 30 seconds at a time. They're not intentional about their learning, and they're not intentional about their education. And you being intentional in that way, it is a mark of courage, because most people would rather watch TV. They're trying to avoid and escape their life. And if you have the courage to work on something that takes you 1 inch closer to your dream, that is an act of courage. That's an act of courage. And the thing about courage is the more you demonstrate courage, the more you show up before you're ready, before it's perfect, before it's already been determined and prepackaged and polished up for you, the more you get to access opportunity. And the more that you access opportunity, the more that you get to enjoy the fruits of that courage. You know, so many people talk about the virtues of work, and I think working hard is really important. But what are you working at? The inner game of coaching is to ask those hard questions and to say, like, am I being consistent or am I just being busy? Am I consistent with building my dream or am I simply busy? It's asking, like, am I rooting what I'm doing in authentic service to other people and the world? Or am I still stuck on my own bank account? And am I still stuck on my viewer count? Am I still stuck on what people at work will think? You know, am I still stuck on what they're going to say at this year's family reunion? Because if I'm still stuck on all that, I'm still stuck in myself. I'm not activating my curiosity. And are you treating this like a side project, or is this your future self's career? And when you answer those questions, you realize that the energy leaks tend to happen when what you say isn't aligned with what you're doing. That lack of alignment is what sabotages most business owners the very, very most. So some daily character habits to cultivate. Number 1, this is so huge. Celebrate your effort, not just your outcomes. So when I finish this live today, I'm going to be like, woohoo, yay me. I did my weekly live again and it was awesome and I brought full energy and I'm great. So, like, are you celebrating the effort or are you counting how many people are watching you live? Are you celebrating your effort, or are you noticing how many people did or did not DM you afterwards to ask to work with you? Are you celebrating the effort of setting up your website and your funnel and everything to be easy to interact with you? And it's like the effort to do that versus the outcome of whether people did. The second big habit is to journal who you're becoming, not just what you're doing. Right? So when I very first started journaling, it was always like, today I did this and I did that and I did this and I did that. And it was just basically an accounting or a report of what I did today. And it didn't touch on how I felt. It didn't touch on what I learned. It didn't touch on what I was particularly grateful for. My first journaling days were very much simply a to-do list or a to-done list, right? And so I think when you journal about who you're becoming and how you're making those new decisions, it shifts things. The third thing is protect your energy because it's your biggest asset, right? You got to protect it like it's your biggest asset because it really, really is. You can make more money. You cannot make more you, right? And look, you can make all the money in the world. And if you don't enjoy the process, if you don't enjoy who you're becoming as you do it, it won't matter what your bank account says. It won't matter what your credit cards say. It won't matter what, I find money to be kind of one of the funniest things because, like, apart from wearing like clothes that are clearly expensive or other outward signals, people have no idea how much money you have or don't have, right? And so the thing that you need to really protect is actually your energy. Because if your energy is doing really, really well, you tend to do things that are in greater service overall, and you tend to perform at a higher level and then have more to show for it, okay? So if this is the kind of coaching energy that you want to build from steadiness, confidence, and trust, then, you need to be inside of our Clients Over Chaos community. You just really do, because it's all about the kind of coaching that is about service to people and the communication, the connection that's of service to other people. And by the way, we recently updated our website at thecoachesplaza.com. It's got a full rundown of all of our programs. So if you're interested in working with us in a deeper way, such as in the Coaching Goldmine, we've gotten tremendous feedback from our beta clients who have gone through that course. They say it's just absolutely unlocking them in terms of what to focus on and how to build that bridge of connection to people who want to invest with you and want to connect with you and want to invest not just money, but the time and the energy and the enthusiasm for your coaching process. And that's really what we're all about here. So if you want more details about the Clients Over Chaos group or anything else that we do, I am a DM away. You can DM me the word DWM, which stands for Do What Matters, and I'll send you the link to the community, but you can also just send me the message coffee, and I'm happy to send you the details on how you can have a one-on-one coffee chat. I think the biggest thing you need to know, and the biggest thing I wish I could have gone back in time to tell myself when I first started my business, is you're enough. You're already enough. And the real work is becoming unshakable in that truth that you're already enough to drive those roots deep into the ground and understand that that is who you are. You are already enough. And yes, you can learn new talents, and yes, you can do new things, but do it from a place of knowing that your enoughness was never in question. Long-term success is not actually mysterious. It is the daily choice to show up as that very best version of you. Thank you so much for joining me this week on our live stream. Again, we will be posting the replay inside of our Clients Over Chaos community. It is a completely free community. If you or your friends want to go join directly, they can go to next5clients.com. That's next5clients.com, and it will direct you directly to the group, and you can join us from there. It's got all of the details on the group right there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back next week with our next live stream, and I know some of you really want to plan ahead, so here we go. We're going to be talking about using your coaching techniques as business tools. So we're going to be talking about how your sales and marketing is going to become way more effective and efficient when it becomes more reflective of your coaching conversations. So if you're here for it, if you think that's really awesome, or if you have any questions, just let me know, because I'd love to answer your questions here live on the show. And until then, I will see you next time.